Okay, so in this video I'm going to be explaining how European qualification works in the Premier League, and the main reason I'm going to be explaining specifically in the Premier League is because in each different league in Europe the European qualification kind of works a bit differently depending on what league you're in. And also with the Premier League, I think that's the one league that allows the most teams to qualify. I think it's like the maximum amount of teams that can qualify for Europe is like 6 or 7 in the Premier League. So to start with, there are 3 European competitions that you can qualify for in the Premier League, and that is the Champions League and the Europa League. You can both qualify for these straight to the group stage. So if you qualify for these, you're most likely going to go straight to the group stage. And then the third one you can qualify for is the Europa Conference League. And if you qualify for this one, you will go to the playoff stages. So you won't go straight to the group stages. You have to, I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 games you have to play to make the group stage. So those are the 3 competitions you can qualify for, and there are also multiple ways that you can qualify for a European competition. So to start with, the obvious one, the one that people the one that's most famous, is if you finish in the top 5 in the Premier League, you are guaranteed to play in a European competition. That's like not non-negotiable, but that can't really change. Top 5 100% make a European competition. However, this can also be extended, which I will get onto in a bit because this can get a bit complicated. Then the next way you can qualify for European competition is by winning the FA Cup, and if you win the FA Cup you go into the Europa League. And then if you win the Carabao Cup, which is also sometimes known as the League Cup, you then go into the playoff stages for the Europa Conference League. So moving on to the thing that can get a bit more complicated, then teams who finish in 6th and 7th place can then also qualify for a European competition if a team who finishes in the top 5 wins the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. So if a team wins the FA Cup, then the team in 6th place will get the FA Cup spot, and then if a team wins the Carabao Cup, then another team will get the UEFA Europa Conference League spot. However, if a team then if 2 teams from the top 5 win the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, then that's when 6th and 7th get the European places. So that's when 7 teams can make. 7 teams do make the European competition, but the top 7 in the Premier League will qualify for a European competition in that instance. So overall, the top 4 teams will qualify for the Champions League. That happens every season. Then the fifth place team will then qualify for the Europa League. Then the FA Cup winners will also qualify for the Europa League, but this, like I just said, goes down to the 6th place team in the Premier League if said team that wins the FA Cup has finished in the top 5. Then the Carabao Cup winners will qualify for the Europa Conference League. They'll qualify for the playoff stages. However, this goes down to the 7th place team if the team that wins the Carabao Cup is in the top 5. So hopefully that's been drilled into your brain a bit more. So then this is when it can get quite complicated. So if a club wins the Champions League, they will automatically qualify for it in the next season. So if this team finishes outside the top 4, they will still qualify. If this team finishes outside the top 4, they will technically then qualify with the top 4 for the Champions League. So then 5 teams can be in the Champions League if this scenario happens. However, if a club wins the Europa League, they also qualify for the Champions League in the next season. Then if 2 clubs win the Champions League and the Europa League but finish outside the top 4, they will qualify for the Champions League next season, but the team in 4th will then go down to the Europa League. So then in that instance, the top 3 teams in the Premier League will qualify for the Champions League, plus the teams that won the Champions League and the Europa League will go in. However, the team in 4th, instead of being in the Champions League, will then go down to the Europa League. See what I mean by how this can get a bit complicated? I was kind of confused reading that then, but then I've kind of worked it out. However, the winner of the Conference League is then also guaranteed a place in the Europa League. If they don't, then if a team wins the Conference League, but they don't qualify for it through the Premier League or FA Cup, they will then go to the They will then be put into the Europa League as an additional club. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think that probably means that the club that qualifies probably won't be seen as a club from England. They will just be seen as a team that has been added. So if you got through that and you got through my explanation, first of all, well done, because sometimes I have a tendency to explain things and make them more complicated than they actually are. However, I'm going to put forward an example, and this is last season, so the 2021-2022 Premier League season. So this was an example, from what I can remember. This is an example where the top 7 teams qualified for Euro, and I think I'm not entirely sure. I think this is the first time the UEFA Europa, whatever it's called, Conference League, was used in this way. So this is the first time a club could qualify for the Conference League. So getting into it, the teams who qualified for the Champions League in the top 4 were Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham Hotspur. Like I've said a million times, that never changes unless obviously a team wins the Europa League and the Champions League and they both finish outside the top 4. So 99% of the time, the top 4 will qualify for the Champions League like that. Then the Europa League places went to Arsenal and Manchester United, and then the Europa Conference League place went to 7th place West Ham United. So usually Manchester United and West Ham United wouldn't get those places in Europe. However, due to Liverpool winning both the Carabao Cup and FA Cup final in 2022, this meant that 6th place Man United got the Europa League, and then 7th place West Ham United got the Europa Conference League. So that was just a quick example to explain how it works. And apart from, the top 5 getting Euro and then the 2 cup winners getting the other 2 places, that is most likely how this will play out. I doubt that 2 English teams winning both European competitions will happen very often. So those complicated scenarios most likely won't happen very much unless the winner of the Conference League finishes outside the top 4. Outside the top 5. I'm guessing that one is probably the most likely complicated scenario to happen. However, that one isn't really too complicated, to be honest. They just qualify for the Europa League as an additional club. However, that was me explaining how European qualification works in the Premier League. Hopefully you're not too confused and that might clear up some of the complicated scenarios. So if you want me to explain how anything else works in football-soccer, if you want me to explain anything else, leave it down in the comments. Or if you would like to know how European qualification works in other leagues, because I know that depending on what league you're in, it can work out slightly differently, because some leagues have different amounts of places where you can qualify for Europe and all that. So if you want all that explained, put that down in the comments and I will do that eventually. I can't guarantee that it will be next week or the week after, but I will get around to it. Leave a like on the video, especially if this cleared anything up for you. Thank you for listening to this How It Works video, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.